City Current. Produced by Dakota Media Access. In-depth discussion with Bismarck and Mandan city officials. Watch on Government Access Channel 602 HD or tune in to Radio Access 102.5 FM. Always local, always current.
Hello and welcome to City Current. I'm Mary Van Sickle here in the studios at Dakota Media Access. Welcome Jim Neubauer from the city of Mandan.
Good morning, Mary. Thank you for having us today.
Yeah, almost springtime. We're looking forward to it.
I think what temperatures-wise, it's not as nice as this past weekend, but we're going to get there.
We're getting there for
Yes.
sure. But it is March and it's early March, so
Very much.
we got to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's March 5th actually. We're recording this program on March 5th, which is the morning after the Mandan City Commission meeting.
Right. Another good meeting last night. I think
Yeah.
we went for roughly an hour, so all is good.
And our job here is to talk about the highlights.
Right.
So that's what we're going to do. One of the first things on the agenda was under consent agenda, and it was actually pulled for discussion, or I should say some clarification. And this has to do with the Union Cemetery.
Correct.
And it's kind of an ongoing issue that you've got up there.
Yeah, we noticed over the last few years that there has been kind of a sloughing of the hillside on the east side of the cemetery, and we want to make sure that if there's something going on in there, that we can duly protect the cemetery grounds and the residents and the railroad tracks down below. So the action last night was when we apply for a Department of Emergency Services grant, then the city needs to make sure that we have a financial commitment. And so there is a commitment when you apply for the larger grant money. So they know that the city is serious about this. Yes, we are. We need to kind of figure out what's going on and need some help in doing that. So yeah, it's kind of we want to make sure that all the areas of the cemetery are protected and do our best to do that.
Yeah, we have a map that we can pop up too, showing the location. I think most people realize where this
Correct.
cemetery is. If you're on I-94 going west, you pretty much go right by it.
You will see it. And like I said, it's a great place. Cemetery's been there for a number of years. And like I said, we need to protect the area that it encompasses.
And because it has been there for quite a few years, it's having, again, these sloughing issues.
Yep, some sloughing issues. Obviously, we have been in kind of a wet cycle for a number of years. And is the moisture in that hillside? It's always, from my knowledge, has kind of weeped water out the side, and it's become more prevalent, I think, in the last few years. So we just need to do some geotechnical analysis on that hillside, and is there a solution to make sure we are protected?
I was reading in your agenda packet, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it said that the elevation of this hill is 40 feet higher than the railroad tracks down
Correct.
below.
Yep.
So that seems logical. It's going to have some issues over time. You've got the grave sites up here, you've got a railroad track down here, a lot of moisture. There's some issues that come
Yeah,
up.
and we want to make sure we're not, none of the grave sites are in danger in any way whatsoever right now.
Yeah.
It's just the edge of this property. We want to make sure that if there's some things we can do to protect it and preserve that area, that we do what we need to do.
And wasn't there like a water main break a couple of years ago?
A couple of years ago,
too,
we had
as
a
result of this?
water line break up there, and like I said, unfortunately, that we're still dealing with some effects of that. And like I said, making sure that hillside is restored and maintains its current position.
So work continues up
Work
there.
continues, and again, part of the action last night was to ensure that the city has made a commitment. And also, for us, there will be more to come on this in years to come, because then once the fix, whatever that fix is, will be, I'm sure, quite expensive.
Yeah, and your agenda packet had all that information,
Right.
and it has different phases that this is going to go through, and as I understood, it looked like phase 1 is just being completed. So
Yeah.
there's a few other steps that are going to happen.
We hired a firm to do some preliminary work probably a year or two ago, when they first noticed, or when that started to worsen. And they provide us with some background information, and that led us to going into, we need to do a full-blown exploratory move here and figure out what's going on and how we can prevent, again, any of the hillside from continuing to slough.
Again, more to come.
More to come.
That was approved last night and pulled for discussion, but another item on your consent agenda that was not approved or excuse me, not, it was approved, but it was
Yes.
not pulled for discussion, was a replacement of a loader out at the landfill.
Right.
And I only bring it up because it's pretty spendy to buy these pieces of equipment. I
They
have a
are.
picture of
Yeah.
what's going to be purchased, and this is a John Deere 744P.
Oh, do the Tim Allen bark like that? Yeah, there is some very expensive equipment at the landfill. One of those pieces is a front end loader that it's in pretty harsh environment and it is running all the time. And therefore they get replaced, I think, about every 5 years. This one comes at a cost of $511,000, I
Yikes.
believe.
Yeah.
The steel wheel loader or steel wheel compactor that we have at the landfill, I think, is about $1 million. And so this one at $500,000, again, a machine that is used continuously out at the landfill. And like I said, one of those that there's not really a choice here. You need to get them in and get them replaced on a regular basis. And so
Yeah.
that's what we're doing.
I went online and found the the model, and
Yeah.
it basically said it's a large and in charge.
It is large and in charge, and absolutely. So we make sure that folks come up to the landfill, they're aware of it, and they're not going to. It's not wise to drive behind these machines, and again, be aware of their surroundings, and our operators are aware of the surroundings too. So we just kind of make sure that everybody is cognizant of there is some pretty sizable equipment out there.
So it's not a new piece, it's a replacement for an existing
Correct. Replacement
loader.
of an existing piece. So again, we've got the major pieces of equipment out there would be the steel wheel compactor. This front end loader at $500,000. We just bought a new, what I call as a burn box for burning trees and things like that out there too, and that's been delivered. So we got some significant investment in the landfill of late.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move on to new business now, and this was one of the items we wanted to talk about was a city-owned lot that has another property owner has made an offer
Yes.
on this. A staff recommended not to sell at that
Correct.
price at this point.
Yeah, it kind of boils down to this is a piece of property that the city obtained, kind of an odd shape. Not sure what happened in the platting process, but there's really no access to a lot that we came back to the city for back taxes. We don't see a lot of those, but in this case, the individuals bought an adjoining piece of property, would like to buy this piece of property from the city and construct some shop condos in the area.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, obviously, because it's landlocked.
Right.
The existing property owner who owns this piece wants to buy this odd-shaped piece.
Correct.
Seems logical. It was denied last night primarily because it's not fitting your land use plan.
Correct.
plan,
There's topographical issues with this piece too. You know, there's some fill that has to be brought in and other things dealing with stormwater and drainage issues. So it's not a nice flat piece of developable property without some of that additional work going on. Again, the adjoining property owner made an offer. They put together a plan that what they would like to see there, which would be shop condos. The adjoining properties to the east, the south, and the west are all residential. The land use plan calls for residential in this area. The special use permit that they requested last night, and also with the offer to buy, would have not been consistent with that land use plan.
Yeah, that seems a bit tricky when you put this in a residential
Yep,
area.
absolutely, and there's the Montessori school, which is right next door also, and so the commercial use that the proposed buyer wanted to use, it doesn't fit that area,
Okay.
and they wanted to get some commission input on that. The commissioners agreed that that was not appropriate. Doesn't prevent the individual from coming back and saying, okay, we've got a different plan.
Okay.
And here's another offer for that
Right.
property and for the commission to consider. So the Mitleidlers had put in considerable time and effort into presenting this. They had been in communication with us from the get-go, and we have always said that this is an area for residential, not for the shop condo uses that were intended. But again, they wanted to come forward and have that discussion with the commission last night too.
Sure.
So doesn't prevent
So-
them from coming back with a different idea or different plan,
Yeah.
and we'd certainly entertain that too.
Okay, sounds
So,
good.
yeah.
Also under new business, Madison Cermak brought forward a couple of projects from the growth fund. It's actually one larger project, but they're different parcels, so they had to be presented separately.
Yep, there are 3 different pieces of this property. A lot of folks will know it from the area on east part of First Street. Andrea Langang, I think, has her chiropractic clinic on the west side that was finished, and there are 2 pieces adjoining that property. So there are 3 separate parcels, I believe. Both the easterly parcels were under consideration for storefront improvement grant money last night. So they're
We have a picture we could
Yeah.
pop up of the existing, the way it is right now, and it's partially finished. It's in various states here,
right,
really.
and that's a result of former Mandan Senator Doug Larson and his family died tragically a few years ago, and this was one of their projects they were working on. Steve Keelan has now purchased that property and is interested in kind of finishing off what was
Yeah.
originally started. So, again, it's been in a state of flux for a little bit, and due to those unfortunate circumstances, and now Steve is ready to kind of make move and
That'll be nice
make
to
this
get-
property, clean it
Yeah.
up, and make it look a lot better than it looks today.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a big chunk there, so.
So, yeah, both
New siding and
new
all
siding,
exterior.
windows. They'll have the handicap accessible doorways and things like that as a requirement of funds going into this. And again, we're looking forward to that property being cleaned up and
Yeah.
finishing off what, you look at what Andrea Langang has there right now. It's a really nice looking building, and we expect the rest of it to be very complementary. And this,
All
and again,
kinda-
another good project.
And kind of tie it all together.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Yep,
Sure.
so thank
So that
you to
was
Steve
approved.
and for bringing that forward,
Yeah.
and Madison and the Growth Fund for recommending that it be approved, so.
Pretty much unanimous all the way around.
Yes,
Yeah.
so a good project.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, this is City Current. We are recording this program on Wednesday, March 1st.
March 1st.
5th.
5th, there we go.
March 5th. I almost said May.
Not that warm out
No,
yet,
No, not yet.
and we don't want to
So-
wish March and April away, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Jim Neubauer is here, City Administrator for the City of Mandan, and I'm Mary Van Sickle. So, City Current, talking about the Mandan Commission meeting last night. Last couple of items, resolution under resolutions and ordinances. There was a final consideration on the moratorium that you have, a zoning moratorium in place.
Right, we had put one in roughly about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, because we were undergoing a kind of a zoning code rewrite. And as part of that zoning code rewrite, we extended that time frame by about 6 months. So this moratorium was set to expire, I think, in February of 2025. We expect the zoning code rewrite is in its kind of final stages, and looking for that completion in May and June of this coming year. So this moratorium extends on basically cold storage units from being constructed and approved until, I think, July 1 of 2025.
Oh, okay,
So-
just a few more months.
A few
then.
more months,
Okay.
and like I said, we just thought it was important to make sure that we are consistent with that. And,
Okay.
and in fact, there haven't been any folks that have come in wanting to do cold storage units, and so, like I said, we're not putting any project in peril,
Delaying
in it.
on
That
this.
was a concern the first time we instituted this, and we gave some exceptions and said you have, okay, X 30 days or 60 days to get your projects in.
Okay.
That nothing ever came forward that was blocked. So again, this is another one of those situations where there aren't any projects that are being put on hold on this. If there were, that we'd be taking those into consideration,
Okay.
and this just extends that moratorium until, I think, July.
All right.
Yeah.
There was another ordinance, initial consideration last night, and this is on prohibited camping
Right.
in the city on public property.
Yep.
This is similar to an ordinance Bismarck put in place. not
Very
too
similar
long
to
ago.
what Bismarck put in place. I know that Commissioner Schoberg has spent considerable time with Deputy Chief Stugelmeyer in Bismarck and crafting, and with Attorney Oster and Chief Ziegler and his crew about crafting an ordinance that is very similar, so that we're not out in left field on anything, and we're just doing this as kind of a preemptive strike, so that we're not having any issues and this was the time to do it, because I think adopting ordinances when you don't have issues is a better time than coming in at the last minute and trying to be reactive to these things, and that's what this ordinance is
Sure.
attempting to do, is let's put some rules in place in case something like this happens. If it does, we're prepared, and our police department has the tools that they need to deal with things like this. And we're not out kicking people out of anything right now, and usually it's you can't be camping here, you need to move your stuff, and we've always had very good cooperation in that vein, but sometimes there will be the ones that are not cooperative, and that's what
Right.
this intends to deal with.
I have not witnessed any camping going on in Mandan as
No.
well. Driving through, I really haven't seen it. Bismarck, on the other hand, did have situations where there were people with excessive amounts of stuff
Right.
on the sidewalks, a lot of it in the downtown area, so they, again, had to react and put something in place. Seems to be going okay. I
Yeah, haven't heard
anything. Yeah.
anything, so this is always good. I know that we have had instances where folks, and this includes the Heart River levee, which was important to include in there, because we have had folks that have carved out their own little camp
Oh, okay.
niche in the levee system,
Yeah.
which gets to be pretty serious in the springtime if there's some high waters and things like that. And this is to prevent some of that too, because unfortunately, we have had those instances come up, and we want to be able to deal with them
Yeah.
in a timely and forthright and a fair and consistent manner.
And you told me earlier that this process has not just been within the staff.
Right.
They've done some outreach into other organizations in the community that deal with people who are
Absolutely,
who are
because we
unhoused.
know this is not a single issue for
Yeah.
one department to deal with, because when it comes down to if we end up going down this road, then all right, we have to have our public works crew involved, because if we're going to be moving things out, they're the ones that are going to have to do it. We've been in contact with Western Plains Health. We've been in contact with all of the other organizations. I think they got a note on Monday that said, hey, this is coming up. If you have any comments, please let us know. And that's part of the first consideration, where you want to get this out in the public. Let's take some comments if you have any, and we'll make those considerations.
And I did notice at the meeting that Sister Kathleen from
Yes.
Ministry on the Margins wrote a letter of support
Yes.
for the ordinance.
Yes, very nice to see. I know that Sister Kathleen has been heavily involved in the Bismarck and how they're doing
Yeah.
things in Bismarck. And like I said, she reviewed the ordinance, wrote a letter of support for it, which we're very appreciative. And like I said, we'll see if we have any other comments that come in over the next week or so. And the plan would be to have the second and final consideration on the March 18th agenda. If there's things that come up in between, we could move that second consideration to a later date, but we'll see how things transpire over the next week or so.
Okay, sounds good. Well, that wraps up our notes from last night's meeting.
Yes.
But before we go on to something else, I just want to ask you about chickens. City of Bismarck
Yeah.
is considering a chicken ordinance to see if it's coming back to them at some point in time. Have you had problems with chickens in Mandan?
We have
to
not,
ask.
and very interestingly and coincidental, I think Mayor Freilich and I were chatting right before the commission meeting yesterday, and he got a random phone call.
Okay,
And we put it on speakerphone, and it was someone from Bismarck calling Mayor Freilich and asking about chickens. So I think we have roughly 13 permit holders out there, and if in the time since we adopted the ordinance.
was when?
Oh.
a couple of years.
Maybe 4
Okay.
years ago.
Okay,
4 or 5 years ago, and we've had, I think, one loose chicken to deal with.
we have.
Yeah, I think one was running, if you call one and check it runs, maybe they run down Collins Avenue and created a little bit of a ruckus. But other than that, I think the owners, we have a pretty strict set of guidelines on here's the type of coop, how many chickens you can have, how far away this has to be
Sure.
away from the property lines and things like that. So there's a really good diagram on our citymandan.com
Okay.
webpage that folks can look in. You can type in backyard chickens and you'll find that right away. Permitting process, like I said, I think we have 13 permits last I checked,
Okay.
and we have had very few issues with them. I think the biggest issue is when we were dealing this, I think 4 or 6 years ago, whichever it was, during legislative session, and I get called over to a committee hearing, and I walk in the Capitol, and the people clucking of chickens was quite loud, and I just said thank you very much, and I'm glad you're all watching Dakota Media Access and our live meetings. And
That's funny.
it was quite entertaining, and people were getting a kick out of it. But there's positions on both sides, two sides to every story. We want to make sure that the folks that have these chickens are taking care of them, and they're being respectful of their neighbors and things
Yeah.
like that. And so far, we just, not to say that there haven't been issues, but we haven't heard of any issues to date. Knock on wood, because as soon as we say that, there's going to be something.
Yeah,
But
sure.
like I said, I think the people that want to do this are taking it seriously, and therefore making sure that they are respectful of their neighbors.
It's a
and
pretty
things
big
like that.
investment to put this in place.
Yeah. Chicken coops are not cheap,
Yeah.
and feeding them and all that good stuff. And just make sure everyone knows there are no roosters allowed.
Yeah.
You can have the hen laying chickens, and away you go. But again, we have not had issues with chickens in Mandan.
So
Proud to report that.
you are known for your chicken leadership in chickens.
Yeah, I have to
That's part of
thank
your legacy.
former planner John Van Dyke, who's up in Minot now, and we struggled whether to bring this in front of the commission, and finally we had a lot of people, I say a lot, handful, 10 maybe, folks
Sure.
that were kept pushing and saying, hey, we should adopt these.
Yeah.
And so we went through the process and did that, and like I said, it's been pretty quiet ever since.
Sounds
As
good.
long as there's no roosters, it's pretty
Yeah,
quiet.
that's right. Okay, we're going to jump off a couple of extra items here. I want to talk about the Mandan Messenger.
Yep.
Got it up on my screen. If we can pop it up and show what it looks like, you can get this delivered right into your email if
Correct.
you like. Or you can go to the City of Mandan and cityofmandan.com and read the Mandan upcoming events
Yep.
and the latest news on the Mandan Messenger. It's really a valuable
is, and I-
publication.
Throw a big shout out to Carrie Schmidt, our communications specialist, who puts this together with the contributions from all of our departments that help provide ideas and proofreading and writing
Yeah.
and things like that. So we think this is one of our more successful endeavors as far as communicating to the public. And
Yeah.
like I said, you can get it online at any time, and you can sign up and get an email when it's available, and so it works out pretty well.
Yeah, I always read it, and then we picked out a couple of hot
Yeah.
items. We want to talk about the Mandan, the Crying Hill
Yeah, there's been
effort
some
up there.
discussion over this. Mayor introduced this kind of rejuvenation of the letters on Crying Hill and what we can do to enhance them, and really kind of started this fall when an individual made contact with us and said, hey, we should be doing something to clean up the side of this hill. We made contact with 3 affiliated tribes because they own the land that the MAND sits on, and city owns the land that the ANN sit on. And so in discussions with them, they were perfectly good with, okay, let's get this area cleaned up. We did that with the help of Doosan Bobcat folks that brought some of their machines in and made pretty quick work of it. And when we did that, discovered that the concrete letters that were installed, I probably guess 40 years ago, had, there was a pretty good deterioration state of those, and just simply scraping and painting was not really going to be worthwhile.
Sure.
So Mayor Freilich and like I said, a couple of members of the community said, hey, what else can we do? And so we entered some of those discussions, and this is one of the final concepts that came up. And again, important to note, this is a concept. It has not received any kind of approval to move forward in full force with this. It is a concept, and this is the one that seemed to be preferred, and now we'll try and figure out how to actually get this done.
This, we talked about it again at our last city current. This will also be illuminated, right?
That was one of we laid some ground rules down at the beginning
Yeah.
of the discussion. And one of those ground rules was, or some of those were, it needs to be respectful of the property and the history of Crying Hill.
Is that you
And,
standing next to the M?
No,
You
we
can
have,
put a little statue of
Mayor
Jim
Freilich's
Boulevard.
pretty good about that and saying, and remember, the person in this drawing is not real. And I think the letters are roughly 20 feet tall that we have. And again, conceptually, the idea was that we need to be respectful of the history and the heritage of this site, first and foremost. And how can we illuminate the letters so that you can see them in the evening and you could maybe light them up. You can do a lot of things with LED lights nowadays that
Sure.
you couldn't 2 years ago or 5 years ago. And so the idea would be that we could light these up in the evening, whether similar to if you see the lights on the LED lights on the rails in Dykeshorn Park,
Okay.
is that you can switch them out when it's breast cancer awareness, or maybe when it's March is St. Patrick's Day.
Oh,
So maybe they could be green for St. Patrick's Day, red, white, and blue items going on for the 4th of July
sure.
and things like that. So there's some interesting concepts that we'd
Yeah.
like to kind of see that work through.
And do I understand there'll be some fundraising associated
Yeah,
with
we
this?
would
Okay.
certainly prefer, and Mayor came out and said that we'd like to raise funds for this from the private side. We also will look at, should we do an entrance off of Mandan Avenue to what would become future Division Street with a parking area with some also placards and historical markings, so tell the history of what Crying Hill really is about.
Okay,
And
because
so
there's
that would be
already
part of this.
trails up there, right?
There's no official
Oh, okay.
trails up there, I will say
Okay.
that, because it is still private property.
Okay.
It is not public property, and we don't encourage folks to
Sure.
do that. Do some people do that? Yes, we know that that happens on
Okay.
occasion. We don't encourage it. It is still private property, and like I said, part of it would be, we want to make sure we tell the story of Crying Hill, because it's a pretty cool story, and therefore the historical markers and things like that would also tell that story and encourage folks to stop by, take a look.
What year did the sign get put up there? Did that start? Do
You know, the south side where we have trees planted, on the south side of Crying Hill used to be rocks that were spray painted white.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's some issues that came up. I happened to be in 1981 one of the high school kids that rolled the rocks down the hill on purpose because
okay.
it was.
I thought this was a confessional here.
No, it was intentional that
Okay.
I think our basketball team was asked to roll the rocks down the hill because there were some people that would go up and rearrange the letters
okay.
in words that you may not want
Oh,
on full display.
Wow.
And so we were asked to go up there, roll the rocks down the hill. We did that.
Okay.
And then I think the trees were planted shortly after that. So right now those trees have grown up, so you can't really tell that it spells Mandan unless you're in
That's
your
true.
an
Yeah.
airplane or your drone is flying over or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
right.
that. So,
Okay.
and I think after that, then I think the letters went up on the other side of the hill. And there's some history on
Interesting.
that, on how that happened too.
All
But
right.
again, it's a very significant historical piece in Mandan that we want to make sure how can we best tell the story here.
Yeah, yeah. Also on your Mandan Messenger, I want to pop up this screen here. This has to do with the primary residence credit. Really important. End of the month is the deadline.
End of the month is deadline. We've had a ton of folks coming into City Hall to help get signed up for this, and we do that through our assessing office. They will help you. But again, you can do it online. Takes, I think there's maybe 5 or 6, maybe 7 questions. Might take you 30 seconds to do. We encourage folks to do that, or you can come down and we will help you through the process.
Now, this is still at that $500 level?
This is the $500
Okay.
primary residence credit that will show up on your, the first one showed up on your property tax statement that you would have received in November, December of 2024, payable in 2025.
Okay.
This is for the one that will be your statement that would show up in December 2025.
Okay.
So again, you need to sign up for this. It's not automatic. You need to go on and put your information in, and it is a very, very straightforward and simple process.
Do I understand, though, that the legislature is talking about expanding
Yes.
this primary residence tax credit? But this particular one is locking you in at the 500, but that could be expanded in the future.
Right, that is
Okay.
part of Governor Armstrong and legislative leadership's proposal in House Bill 1176, I believe, that it kind of eventually increases that up to, I think, $1,450, close to $1,500, again, for your primary residence credit. So that's one that we are obviously keeping an eyeball on.
Sure.
And like I said, that will, from what we understand, will still be a sign-up. You'll need to go and take some action. It just won't be an automatic as the bill is written now.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
All right.
everything could change as crossover has just occurred, and all the bills from the Senate moved over to the House that were passed, and all the ones from the House that were passed moved over to Senate. So now let the negotiations begin.
Yeah, now
Right?
it gets a little heated sometimes.
Yep.
And you did give a legislative update last night to the commissioners. Not a lot of action between now and the
Right.
last meeting.
Kind of rinse and
yeah.
repeat. One of the ones we were watching was the wastewater collection and treatment. Some funding assistance there that originally started out at about $50 million for statewide monies. That got chopped in half to, I think, $25 million as it came through, the House Appropriations Committee. That passed and moves over to the Senate side. Obviously, we'd like to see it up to $50 million because that's more opportunity for all communities in North Dakota to try and take advantage.
Okay.
And wastewater treatment plants and collection systems have typically not been recipients of grant money. I mean, we can take all the loan money we want out. There's not an issue there with loaning. Loans have to be paid back. Grants, in this case, this is grant money. And there's some restrictions on there too. But again, it's a good start.
I would assume
to
you're
get into
watching
that
those
world.
pretty closely
Yep.
as they affect your water systems.
Absolutely.
And you'll be coming back to the commission, I would assume, with many updates in the next few weeks. So.
Right.
All right. Last thing I want to mention, if we could pop that screen up, we have apps. We've been
have
talking
apps.
about our Dakota Media Access
Right.
app for quite some time, but we just launched our Radio Access app, and it is awesome. It
Cool.
is so nice to listen to it. A little easier to get. I mean, we've been streaming on Radio
Right.
Access since the beginning, radioaccess.org, I should say. And you can get there. Obviously, you have to go through the website and hit listen, and you can get them whatever is on at the time, or you can get into the podcasts or our music program archives. All of that is still available on radioaccess.org, but the app makes it so much easier.
Yeah. In fact, I was listening not to the app, but the radio on my way home from work on Monday night to the Burley County Commission meeting.
Yeah.
So catch, you don't have to
Always
miss
listen.
things.
Yes,
Always
for
listening.
sure.
So.
Well, and with low power, our over-the-air broadcast signal is low power.
Right.
So the signal will drop in certain areas in the community. We've probably got a radius of 5-10 miles easily outside if the terrain is flat. But the apps make it so much easier. And we've had the Dakota Media Access app. That gives you both the community channel and the government
Right.
channel, whatever is on live. And it also has an archive on that app too. So super easy to use, super easy to download, whether you have Android or Apple, it doesn't matter. You can get right in there. There's a little QR code on this graphic
Yep.
that we can use too. So all good. We'll continue to pump it, get people to sign up.
It's all good, and I think
Yeah.
the Dakota Media Access and you, Mary, do such a great job of providing that service to our community, whether it's city, school, parks, county, pick your favorite.
Yeah.
You guys are there and providing the service to the public, so that makes from my standpoint,
Thank you.
makes our life
That
a
makes
lot
a
easier.
difference. And it's all about keeping up with this technology. I mean, apps have been around for a while.
Yep.
But at the beginning, a lot of technology is takes a lot more money, and we just try and grab them when we can, and
Right.
when we see they fit in the budget, and these are working very, very well so far, and we've made that investment, and I think they're definitely worthwhile.
Yeah,
So,
and the overall goal is keeping your community informed
yeah,
and engaged and things like that. And I think that's the benefit of things like this is that while you may be listening to it on the radio at 102.5, you get out at 5-7 miles and you don't have that, you can
Exactly.
stream it to your phone or your vehicle or however you do
Exactly.
that.
Often I'm listening to the radio to a meeting on my way home, and then because we're out a little bit, the signal starts dropping a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I should have put the app on, and it can listen. So, which
There
I
you
often do. So,
Change is tough for some of us.
Oh, my
We'll
gosh.
get her figured out.
well, we gotta accept it. It's here,
Right.
always changing constantly. So, thanks, Jim.
Thanks for having us as always.
All
Much
right.
appreciated.
See you in a couple weeks.
All right.
All right, thanks, and thank you for joining us on this edition of City Current.
For more information on what was discussed in this episode of City Current, visit cityofmandan.com or call 701-667-3215. If you have any suggestions, comments, or issues you would like addressed in future City Current episodes, contact us at info@freetv.org. This program airs on Government Access Channel 2 and 602 in HD, or on Radio Access 102.5 FM. It's also available as a podcast on radioaccess.org and as a video viewing link at freetv.org. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of City Current.